Good evening, friends, and welcome to the Dreary Midnight Podcast. My name is Lisa. My pronouns are she, they.
My name is Celeste. My pronouns are she, her.
And today we are revisiting the topic of Banshees. Let's get into it. Intro music.
Intro music.
All right.
I love Banshees.
I also love Banshees. I was looking back into the archive, trying to figure out my next topic and see what we had already done, and I realized we have not covered Banshees while you've been on the show.
No, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Because I love Irish folklore.
Yep.
And specifically Banshees, for some reason, I've had a fascination with since I was like in middle school.
Okay. But for those of y'all who don't know, what is a banshee? It is a being in Celtic folklore, specifically Irish, whose keening warns of a family member's death. Keening is a kind of wailing or loud mourning that only happens at a funeral, or specifically happens in mourning.
Yes.
The name roughly translates to woman of the fairy mound. Bean is woman, and she, or spelled S-I-D-H-E, because it's Irish, she for fairy mounds. Alternately, she is a part of the term Eos she, which is a term for the supernatural race for Celtic mythology, like fae folk, and they live underground.
Okay.
Fae folk, fair folk, Eos she, all roughly the same in Celtic folklore.
Banshees don't live underground.
No, but she's part of that family. Yeah. So point being, she's supernatural. She often follows specific families just of Irish descent.
Yes.
As opposed to Norman or Anglo-Saxon, according to Wikipedia.
So each family has their own like assigned banshee?
Many times, yes.
Got it.
A lot of this lore comes about, or at least is written down in the early 14th century, so the 1300s. And it specifically if you're Norman or Anglo-Saxon who settled down in like 1375 or whatever, you don't get one because they were at war with Normans and Anglo-Saxons until that point. She is sometimes associated with the death coach, which is kind of psychopomp. Her animals that she's associated with are the stoat, hare, weasel, and crow.
Did we go over the death coach in the Psychopomps episode?
I
don't think we did.
So
there
guessing could be an entire episode about it, but
I'm guessing it's a stagecoach.
Yeah.
For the dead.
Yeah. Or that leads you to death, at least. Yeah.
So then if the banshee is assigned to Irish families only, then she's not necessarily evil.
No, she's just like a warning.
She's a warning.
Yeah. So for context, what is keening? And this is...
Do you have an audio clip?
I don't.
Oh.
I just have... This paper is from Griffith University, Madwoman, Banshee, Shaman, Gender, Changing Performance Context, and the Irish Wake Ritual. So shout out to past Lisa for keeping their sources together.
Seriously. So...
According to this one, quote, vocal music of lament is probably the oldest kind of music to have survived in Ireland. The practice of keening, or crying for the dead, is a tradition which is associated almost exclusively with women and forms a central part of the Irish wake ritual. The significance of feminine voice in funerary rites is not peculiar to Ireland, but can be found in many cultures throughout the world. And that's the end of that quote. There are a few types of poetic lament for the dead, including keening. There's like a bardic, elegy, syllabic poem. There's also a death song, which, quote, again, according to the same paper, quote, usually recalls some dramatic tragedy, but it's not an integral part to the rites, end quote. Okay. These are all done with musics, and sometimes the mourning song could just be instrumentals on harp and or pipes. Again, according to the same paper, the critical thing about keening is that the deceased has to be in the room, as it's defined, quote, literally crying for the dead.
I didn't know that.
They go on to say, the Irish antiquarian Thomas Crofton Crocker in 1884, in his book The Keen in the South of Ireland, records his conversation with a famous keener, Mrs. O'Leary, who, when asked to demonstrate her art, she stated, "Sure, 'tis no use keening unless a corpse is stretched out before one." This reluctance to reenact the rite may explain that, while there exists music for the death songs and instrumental laments, there is very little recorded evidence of keening, which is notable since the practice persisted into the 20th century to a time when the tape recorder was certainly in use. However, given that the keening was not a matter for entertainment, but a fundamental part of the wake ritual, this unwillingness is not surprising.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, you can't keen if there's not
Literally, she wouldn't do it unless there was a corpse
dying person or dead person.
Yeah. So all of this to say, when you hear someone keening, supernatural or not, there's going to be a dead body in hearing range soon, if not already.
Yeah, which is why the banshee is a warning symbol.
Yes. Yeah. If you're in person and you hear the keening, you probably already know that you're already at a funeral.
Yes.
But
if you hear a ghostly wail of a keening and there's nobody dead yet.
Yeah. So this is from Smithsonian Folklife. They're quoting Eddie Linehan, who is, according to this, working to preserve those stories he once heard in rambling houses around Ireland. As an Irish storyteller, he has spent decades collecting and sharing folk tales, such as those of the Banshee. If one thing is certain, it is no story that is told exactly like another. Linehan says, some people would say it's a lonesome, frightening cry. Sometimes it's a sweet cry and undulating up and down and up and down.
So it's never the same.
Yeah. And they go on to say no matter how the sound varies from story to story, all of them make the point that it's not a wild animal.
It's a person.
It's definitely a person. Because, sometimes foxes or whatever sound like...
Exactly. Yeah. Like screaming people.
Yeah.
I think deer too, right? Like, isn't it like a deer can make a weird noise that somebody might think... No?
Maybe. I've heard it with cats. And this goes on to say, the wailing death omen glides through the darkness, often culminating at the gates of the soon-to-be-deceased's home. In the morning, the news every listener suspected is shared. There has been a death. Foreboding as a cry may be the most terrifying feature, it is not. Her wail serves as a warning of the inevitable, but her wrath is what many a fireside tale warns against. And this is me going off of, or separating, not quoting the Smithsonian anymore. But her descriptions differ. But there's usually a cloak. Her hair has been described in different colors, but it's usually wild. And sometimes she's described with a comb.
Well, obviously she looks different because isn't she different for every family?
That's fair. But there are some stories that say that she can't do the keening warning if she doesn't have her comb. And Dr. Kelly Fitzgerald is quoted by Smithsonian saying, quote, "Children here would be told never to pick up an old comb if they see it because it could be the Banshee's comb. Her most prized possession is her comb."
Yeah. And you don't want to stop her from doing her warning because then you don't know when someone's going to die.
The Banshee will sit... The Smithsonian goes on to say the Banshee will sit atop garden walls, running this prized possession through her long hair under the moonlight. However, should her comb be snatched from her, she erupts into a shrieking pursuit.
Oh.
Variations of this story bear a similar end. A thief, gasping for the breath lost in his flight, quivers inside his house, only the walls standing between him and the Banshee. The Banshee continues her wailing, shrieking, unbearable screeching, rattling windows, doors, the very bones of the house and the thief, until, recovering his senses, he slides the comb under the door on a spade. The Banshee quiets and leaves, taking the comb and half the spade with her.
Okay. It seems like she can't really harm you.
It's not necessarily harm, but she's also AOC, so she could just have powers and abilities that she cares not to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
They go on to quote Linehan, who apparently knew somebody for 30 years, and the friend of Linehan says, "I can still remember it very, very clearly," because he had apparently seen a Banshee once.
Oh.
And he turned to me, they're quoting Linehan here, saying, he turned to me and he said, "The person sitting beside you could be one of them and you wouldn't even know it. She's often described as a liminal creature, roaming the bounds between woman and fairy, living and dead, this world and the other." But we also have some stories. Because If nothing else, we're here for some stories.
I love stories.
We're going to start with the Reddit ones. Saying, this is from r/Irish folklore 3 years ago. Does anyone know any good Banshee stories?
I don't know any good Banshee stories.
Yeah, I don't.
But I trust
Yeah.
you.
One person says, when I was a child of 12, I went walking with my father on a frosty winter's night about 8 p.m. This was back in the 80s when there was less traffic in rural Ireland. It was one of those nights where there's no noise. When we turned to head home, a terrible wailing started. I was terrified. My father said it was a fox, but I could tell that he was disturbed by it. Because, if you're out with your 12-year-old, you're saying, of course it's a fox,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Also, he probably, I don't know the rest of the story, but maybe he actually did think it was just a fox.
Yeah. We had to walk 2 miles home, and the noise seemed to follow us, not getting any louder or fading either. When my father put the key in the door, the wailing stopped. My mother said that we were as white as ghosts.
Oh,
4 days
boy.
later, my older brother was killed in an accident in Germany. We never spoke about it until 10 years later. I'd moved to Dublin for work, and my father came to stay for a few days. He wasn't a drinker, but we went for a few pints. He got upset and was talking about my brother. He told me that it was definitely the Banshee that we had heard, and told me that he had heard it 4 days before his father died.
So he was lying. It wasn't a fox.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew it wasn't a fox.
Yeah. He said I would probably hear it again when his time comes. He's still alive, but in a nursing home. I'm dreading hearing that noise again.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And this was modern?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was the 80s, but this person posted
That's pretty
it.
modern.
Yeah. Not the 14th century at any rate.
Mm.
Here's another one from Reddit. When I was 18, myself and 2 friends were staying up late, listening to music and chatting. All of a sudden, a screeching started up from the church behind my house. I've heard foxes. I've heard cats. This was similar for sure, but far more chilling and penetrating. We were all deeply unsettled. The joyous chats could not be resumed, and we decided to call the night early. We joked half-heartedly that maybe that was a banshee and how we hoped nothing bad would happen. 2 days later, our friend was murdered.
No.
The experience of that night was, of course, overshadowed by the grief of the loss of our friend and the horror of senseless violence, but I drifted back to it. I would not say I believe in banshees. I understand how the human brain is so good at making stories and patterns out of chaos. But that was certainly quite the experience. If anything would make me believe in that kind of stuff, it would be this.
Oh my God. That's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. If there's going to be a real life story with banshees, it's going to involve death.
Yeah. I think those are also the 2 worst, or at least heaviest ones. But this next one, I have readings from 2 more books. Next one is a series of really short ones from True Irish Ghost Stories, which was published around the turn of the 20th century.
Okay.
And so we're starting at page 211 in this edition. The late Mr. T.J. Westrop has furnished the following story. My maternal grandmother heard the following tradition from her mother, one of the Miss Ross Lewins, who witnessed the occurrence. Side note, I do love that so much of True Irish Ghost Stories is our informant heard this third hand. But
I know.
Anyway, their father, Mr. Harrison Ross Lewin, was away in Dublin on law business. And in his absence, the young people went off to spend the evening with a friend who lived some miles away.
I would love being called the young people. We got to bring back that terminology.
Yes, the youths.
The youths.
The night was fine and lightsome as they were returning, save at one point where the road ran between trees or high hedges not far to the west of the old church of Kilchrist. The latter, like many similar ruins, was a simple oblong building with long side walls and high gables, and at that time it and its graveyard were unenclosed and lay in the open fields. As the party passed down the long dark lane, they suddenly heard in the distance a loud keening and clapping of hands, as the country people were accustomed to do when lamenting the dead.
Yes.
The Ross Lewins hurried on and came in sight of the church, on the side wall of which a little gray-haired old woman clad in a dark cloak was running to and fro, chanting and wailing and throwing up her arms. The girls were very frightened, but the young men ran forward and surrounded the ruin. and 2 of them went into the church, the apparition vanishing from the wall as they did so. They searched every nook and found no one, nor did anyone pass out.
Okay.
I assume leave, but also faint.
Yeah.
All were now well scared and got home as fast as possible. On reaching their home, their mother opened the door and at once told them that she was in terror about their father. For, as she sat looking out the window in the moonlight, a huge raven with fiery eyes lit on the sill and tapped 3 times on the glass. Well, so the other association with sort of death omens with banshees is a death knock. So knock 3 times somewhere.
That's where I heard when I was really into banshees in like high school. I made a comic. Well, you can't find it. I didn't put it anywhere, but I had the idea for a comic about a banshee, and I had called it "Death Comes Knocking." Well, later in my life, I was like, where the heck did I get that title from? And I tried to look up to see if it was some sort of colloquialism, and it's not. And it's the death knock. It's the death knock. I knew more about banshees as a teenager than I do as an adult. And I'm like, you just made it click. Like, oh my God, 16-year-old me wasn't crazy.
All right.
Also, I'm copywriting that. That's my title if I ever decide to make it.
All right. So they go home. Mom's freaking out because the raven taps 3 times. They told her their story, which only added to their anxiety. And as they stood talking, taps came to the nearest window, and they saw the bird again. A few days later, news reached them that Mr. Ross Lewin had died suddenly in Dublin. This occurred in about 1776. Mr. Restrup also writes that the sister of a former Roman Catholic bishop told his sisters that when she was a little girl, she went out one evening with some other children for a walk. Going down the road, they passed the gate of the principal demesne near the town.
Okay.
There was a rock or large stone beside the road on which they saw something. Going nearer, they perceived it to be a little dark old woman who began crying and clapping her hands. Some of them attempted to speak to her but got frightened, and all finally ran home as quickly as they could. Next day, the news came that the gentleman near whose gate the banshee had cried was dead. And it was found on inquiry that he had died at the very hour at which the children had seen the specter.
Oh. He didn't get much of a warning now, did he?
Well, maybe that the kids are finding out.
Oh,
because it seems like the warning is for the living, not necessarily for the dead.
Mm-hmm. But didn't they... Okay. So this is my question. I'm backtracking. When the father died in the last story, was the father present to hear the knocking and the keening?
In the last
Irish the father was not in that.
No. The dad was in Dublin. Everybody else was home.
I wonder if he heard it in Dublin.
Well, we don't know. He's dead.
We don't know. That's why I'm like, is it to warn that somebody in your family is going to die, or is it to warn that, like, if you hear it? I guess it's to see somebody you know, right?
Yeah, I think it's a warning for those who are still going to be living.
Got it.
I mean, unless we can go back to 1776 and find Mr. Ross Lewin's journals saying, oh my God, I just got back. I heard this weird keening. Unless he is such an avid journaler.
Because it's a family thing. So I'm assuming the people in the family can hear it, but they don't know exactly who. Like the Reddit story is like the son, I don't know if it was the son or daughter, but like the child and the father heard it, but then the brother is the one who died.
But again, in that one, the brother was abroad.
So we don't know.
Yeah. So, and of course, the brother is dead.
Yeah.
But then in the other one, in the other one with the group of friends,
it was like one of the friends died, but was it one of the friends that was at the sleepover?
Myself and 2 friends were staying up late listening to music. Blah, blah, blah.
Or was it just like a mutual friend?
2 days later, our friend was killed. Well, they say our friend, so it could be one of the 3, or it could be the 3 were all friends with this other person.
Yeah, I think if it was one of the 3, they would have said like one of my friends. One of them.
Yeah.
So
it would have said one
It
of
would
them
have
that was there
me
that
and
night.
my,
Yeah.
like, because if it's a group of 3.
Yeah. But even our can refer to 2 or more. This is getting really semantic.
I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering. I'm sorry.
Yeah, same. OP, if you are listening to this, let us know. And shoot me true Irish ghost stories. Before 1894, a curious incident occurred in a public school in connection with the belief of the banshee. One of the boys, happening to become ill, was at once placed in a room behind himself, where he used to sit all day. On one occasion, as he was being visited by the doctor, he suddenly started up from his seat and affirmed that he heard somebody crying. The doctor, of course, who could hear or see nothing, came to the conclusion that the illness had slightly affected his brain.
Okay.
However, the boy, who appeared quite sensible, still persisted that he heard someone crying and furthermore said, "It is the banshee as I've heard it before." The following morning, the headmaster received a telegram saying that the boy's brother had been accidentally shot dead.
Oh, so it must be to the family members.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I thought it was going to be like, and the boy was dead.
I thought that was where that one was going too, but
Huh. I guess that answers our question.
yeah. The other one, it must have been a friend of the
Them.
3 that were there that night.
Yeah.
All right. So this last one, it's much closer to home. This is from Haunted West Virginia by Patty A. Wilson. So not too far from here.
There's banshees in West Virginia. I guess if the Irish immigrated over here.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think I covered this in the first Banshee episode. But the thing is, they follow families.
Yeah.
So, and they follow based on loved ones. Because, again, so far, we found that Banshee can track if someone's in across the country, across the sea, in Germany. So, and I think I covered 1 or 2 stories like they heard it while they were traveling.
Yeah.
So this one is called The Banshee of Martown. And this is, again, Haunted West Virginia by Patty A. Wilson. In Wood County is a little town known as Martown, named for Thomas Marr, an immigrant from Scotland. He was an adventurous young man who decided to make his fortune in America. In the fall of his 22nd year, Tom married a 21-year-old local girl, Mary Ellis. And he and his bride soon set off for America.
Okay.
1836, they came to a section of Virginia that would later become known as West Virginia, to an area not far from the site of a larger town of Parkersburg. Because 1836, West Virginia is not a state until the Civil War in the 1860s. They claimed a piece of prime ground. They built a log cabin. 1837, Mary gave birth to their first child.
Okay.
Reuben Francis would become the light of his parents' life. He lived to be 96.
Wow.
But for Tom and Mary, life was far from easy. Over 25 years, Mary gave birth to a total of 9 children, but only 2 sons and 1 daughter lived to adulthood.
No.
The 3 surviving children did, however, marry and have families of their own, including Reuben, presumably.
Yeah.
1847, the couple's first neighbor settled in. One neighbor followed another. Martown was born. Through the years, the Marrs prospered in many ways, but they also suffered. The deaths of their children were certainly the worst things that happened to them. To bury so many children before the age of 18 was unusual even back then.
Oh.
Also, with their fortunes shifted through the years. When they were young, they were very successful, but in their elder years, they fell upon hard times. This is where the story begins to shift in an uncertain direction.
Okay.
The age of 61, Mr. Marr was working as a watchman on a covered toll bridge or at a railroad station, according to some sources. He was going to work one bitterly cold evening in 1874 when he heard hooves pounding behind him. He turned and saw an old woman wrapped in dark, ragged clothes, riding astride a large white horse. Her gray-white hair was long and blue in the bitter evening half-light.
Oh.
And she filled him with unreasonable terror. Something about her brought his mind back to Scotland and the stories of the Banshee. Banshees were said to attach to families and become harbingers of death, but the Marr family had never had a Banshee.
Oh.
When he turns off towards work, the terrifying apparition continued down the road. He breathes a sigh of relief. Because, okay, it makes sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, It's clearly not following me if I'm taking a side street and they're not,
Exactly.
right?
Also, didn't hear any keening.
Mar breathed a sigh of relief. He was overwrought. He had just imagined things, he told himself. Some poor old woman, wrapped in rags, was probably riding hard to make it to the warmth of a hearth as the bitter night winds buffeted her.
Yeah, imagine.
Maybe she was going.
Imagine how guilty he felt. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, she was just a lady.
But yeah, it's, maybe she's riding hard because the quicker you go, the sooner you get to the fire, right?
Exactly.
The next morning, Mar told his wife of his sighting and laughed it off uneasily. Mary knew her husband well, and she could see the trouble in his eyes. Something of the story disturbed her too. Banshees, she thought. She remembered being a little girl in Scotland and listening in terror to the older folks tell such tales. But in the light of day, it all had to be nonsense. That night, Mar again bundled up to go to work and set out. Again, he plodded along his horse towards his station. At nearly the same spot, he froze. The pounding of hooves from behind him shook his confidence. He turned, half expecting the devil to be riding hard upon him, but it was again the white horse, and once more the old hag held the saddle. Her hair flew around her, and she was shrouded in the layers of dark cloth that reminded him of the winding clothes of the dead. Also, I was just reminded that a lot of, at least one death deity in Irish folklore, whose name I cannot recall, let alone pronounce, often rides on a white horse. So that's the significance there. Once more she rode hard, but then slowed to keep pace with Mar and his mount. His horse pulled at the reins as if trying to break free and run. Mar held them tight, but the horse's eyes bulged, his neck strained, and the bit cut into his mouth as he fought to run away.
Oh, no.
Once more, Mar turned towards his work, and the old woman rode on. Again the next morning, Mar shared the story with his frightened wife. Perhaps it was just a ghost, but what if it was more sinister? What if this was a warning? For 3 more nights the woman came, and the pattern repeated. It was now February, but the cold winds chilled Mar less than the old woman did. Makes sense.
Yeah.
On the 4th night, she stopped appearing. But on his way home one morning, he again saw the white horse and the figure to stride it. This time it was daylight, and so he decided to ask her who she was. He knew everyone in this area, but this woman was not familiar. Don't know why he didn't do it the night that she slowed down to ride with him, but,
Maybe he was so scared shitless that he didn't want to even ask, you know?
Yeah. Mar fought his horse's instincts to bolt and rode towards the woman. He called
it could also have been that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. He called a greeting, but none was returned. Just as he drew near to her, she turned and was gone. The woman and the white horse had simply vanished. Mar confided the strange events to his wife that morning. He was scared. So was she. It seemed impossible that such a thing could happen. On the evening of February 5th, Mar began his customary journey to his job. Here the story is once again unclear. In a genealogical document, it states that Mar was shot, murdered by an unknown assassin.
Oh my God.
But there's an edition of the Parkersburg Examiner from February 7th, and it reports, killed, Thomas Mar, for the last 16 years, an efficient guardian of the property of the B&ORR Co., Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Company, I think, at the Lower Depot, found lying opposite his station box a little before 5 o'clock yesterday morning, with his neck broken and dead. It seems that he took a stepladder from the freight office at 4:30 and, as it is supposed, went upon the roof to clean out his stovepipe. He must have missed his footing and fell to the ground, a distance of perhaps 10 feet.
Oh my God.
He was a genial old man of nearly 60 years and seemed particularly cheerful. It's old for 1874, when 14-year-olds are happily going to war.
Okay, that's fair.
So, like, the other wild thing is, like, last person to receive Civil War dependence benefits died of COVID.
That doesn't sound right.
Look it up.
I believe you,
Yeah.
but
So apparently I'll link an article if I can find it in the description, but basically her father joined up at like 1516 in spring of 65. So he only serves a
Oh.
couple of months.
Yeah.
So that's part one. And then part two is that she's born when he's almost 90, and then she also lives to almost 90. So,
Got it.
yeah.
Okay, that makes some more sense. I was like, ain't no way.
Yeah.
They're still alive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's already dead. Both of them are already dead. But,
I meant ain't no way her dad was still alive.
But, yeah. So, back to Mary Marr for one last little bit. It is said that when a group arrived to tell Mary the news of Thomas's death,
Yeah.
she was already in tears, her face tense and white. She told the man who broke the news, "I already knew. She came and told me." Mary claimed that early that morning she had heard a rider come to the gate and had hurried out, supposing that it was her beloved husband. Instead, it was the woman he had described to her. The old dame lifted a hand and pointed a finger at Mary. "Mary Marr," the hag said. "Thomas Marr has just died. Say your prayers, lady, I bid you will."
Damn.
Mary outlived her husband by many years and watched her grandchildren be born and grow. It is said that she told the story often of the banshee that came to warn them of her husband's death.
I wonder why didn't she hear the banshee for all the times her children died?
That's a good question. I mean, there's also a good sort of question about when do people, fair folk, whoever, conceive of a soul or a life or whatever.
I mean, they said not all of them lived to adulthood. I'm assuming
Yeah.
a lot died in childhood.
Yeah. Or like within that first week.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But at the age of 90, Mary passed away. On the night of her death, there's a terrible shrieking, and the sounds of chains rattling came from the attic of the house where Mary resided. Her children and grandchildren all heard it and were terrified.
Yeah.
Mary's body was laid out for the week, during which time screaming sometimes came from the attic, accompanied by the rattle of chains. Although no one saw her, there were few who doubted that the old hag was the one who made the sounds.
Yeah.
Throughout the years, the Marr family reported other sightings of the banshee who had somehow attached itself to the family. She bid a fair warning for the deaths of many of the members of that clan and frightened mourners with her shrieks and rattling of chains. In the modern times, Banshee seems to have faded away, or at least is no longer attached to the family. In the area where the Marrs once lived, a ghost story has arisen of an old woman wearing black, ragged clothing who rides a white horse through the night. There are those who speculate that this is the Banshee. They believe that she was cut loose from the Marr family for some reason and is now haunting the road where she first made her appearance in the New World. She's known in the area simply as the Banshee of Marrtown. Those who travel those roads hoped never to see the old woman riding her white horse, for they know that she brings death with her. And that's what I have for Banshees this time.
That's so good. I could listen to another 3 hours of you talking about this.
With all of that said, do you want a Banshees Part 3?
Yes.
Celeste wants a Banshees Part 3. I am getting very excited for the Halloween special.
Yeah.
Which will come out on... It is part of the regularly scheduled programming.
Speaking of horses.
What?
Speaking of horses.
Oh, yes. Speaking of horses, indeed. And spooky things riding down roads. Who knows? But keep an eye out for that, because Halloween is part of our regular scheduled programming. It'll be in the regular schedule. Hopefully. I'm also getting married that week, so, if it's a day or two late, yeah, we'll pre-record, and hopefully I'll be able to edit things before my head explodes from wedding planning. Anyway, but if you want to support the wedding fund, join us on Patreon, patreon.com/drearymidnight. If you want
that would be really helpful, actually.
Yeah. If you want to send us an email, you can also do that, drearymidnightpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to connect with us on socials, shoot us a message, instagram.com/drearymidnightpod. With all of that said, if you hear a strange noise, and you know it's not a cat, and you know it's not a fox, and you know it's not an owl, prepare your hearts.
Yeah. Hope you don't have the Irish lineage in you.
Yeah. Prepare your heart for potential breaking within the week. And safe travels home on this dreary midnight. Good night.
Good night.